question. Penny, you said something about being on the county. Was there such a thing back then?
There was, yes, yeah.
That you,
Yeah,
the county
there
would
was.
pay you off?
They would, I don't know where they went because my folks never went and they were very proud of that fact. But,
It was kind of a welfare thing.
It
You took
was
your
a welfare
wagon
thing.
and you went to the county, it was welfare.
Yeah.
And you got butter and the essentials of government.
yeah, yeah. And you couldn't pick and choose, you took whatever you
Yeah.
had.
96 minutes on this.
You had to work for
Here's
that
the
too
version
sometimes.
Yeah,
They wouldn't give you-
yeah.
and the battery was 88 minutes. So
I have a kind of a different slant on the Depression. I'm just a latecomer to Pewaukee, okay? I didn't grow up in Pewaukee Lake, I grew up on the Mississippi River. And I don't know how many of you have been up there, and you've seen the dams and so on, but that was an important part of my growing up.
should be fun.
So
Probably sit
I have
down
written some
and
stories
like
over
they
the past,
do
so
all
I'll
their
just read
own
this
stuff
particular
after I
story.
adjust the camera. But I was just trying to get here so we
I
could
was
see
born in
everyone's
Winona, Minnesota
faces.
in 1928, and the first half of my childhood was deeply influenced by the events of the Great Depression. We lived in several rental houses, and my dad worked as an electrician and plumber. My mother was a homemaker, as married women weren't allowed to work and take jobs away from men. After Dad's construction project ended, there were no jobs available, so we moved to Elma, Wisconsin, where a lock and dam on the Mississippi River was being constructed. The project was part of the National Recovery Act, that's how I knew what it was, which was passed in the 1930s by President Franklin Roosevelt to create jobs as well as for flood control on the river and also to maintain a 9-foot deep channel for towboats to navigate the river. Housing was scarce and people lived in trailers, sheds, summer cottages, and chicken coops. At first, we lived in a small tent, and then in a few rooms when the weather got too cold. In the spring of 1934, my father bought a large tent for our family of 4 to live in temporarily, but the tenting lasted 2 years. That's where I won, that's right, I know what I Our tent was about 20 by 24 feet in size. It's kind of an unusual story, is why I kind of, wanted to share. The space for the tent was between 2 summer cabins, which were rented to tourists or other workers. The city park was along the river, and we were about 50 feet from its shoreline. All the cabins and our tent platform were raised about 3 feet off the ground to allow for flooding of the river. In one corner of our tent was the kitchen area with a 3-burner kerosene stove, icebox, table, orange crate cupboards. I don't know if anybody knows what orange crates are in this younger group, for which my mother had made curtains, and a stand which held a water pail with dipper, wash basin, and towel. The northwest section had a big round oak dining table and 4 chairs, 2 rocking chairs, my mother's treadle sewing machine, and a large upright piano, which formed the inside partition for my sister's and my bedroom. A pot-bellied stove stood between the kitchen and dining living room area, with the stovepipe vented out over the door. The high buffet formed a wall between the kitchen and my parents' room. Curtains on the wires afforded some privacy, and our clothes were hung on a pole between the bedrooms. The tent was pretty bare. I'll pass it around. I only have 1 copy, so I'll just pass it around. This is a copy of our tent, okay? The tent was pretty dreary except for days when the diffused sunlight shone through the canvas. We couldn't see out, but we could hear everything too well, such as trains, boat whistles, and neighbors' conversations. We pumped our water from a nearby well and carried it by the pail. The outhouse was behind the tent, and we shared it with a couple in another tent next to us. A lady in town who took in washings did our laundry every 2 weeks for 50 cents. Yes, it didn't change our clothes very often. In the summer, the Iceman brought a box of ice for our icebox. We had kerosene lamps, which had to be filled daily, and the lamp chimneys had to be washed. My mother had a portable oven, which she set on top of the one stove burner, with no way to control the temperature, but she managed to bake bread, rolls, pies, cakes, and cookies. In the winter, we burned both wood and coal, as the coal or coke kept the fire going all night long. I remember being cold most of the time when more than 2 feet from the stove. but I wore long underwear and long cotton stockings. Bathing on Saturday night was accomplished by standing beside the stove with the porcelain wash basin on the top to keep the water warm. I'm not sure that I ever shed all my clothing at once while bathing in winter, but I turned frequently to keep all sides of my body warm. We were very poor, but so was nearly everyone else. The construction workers on the dam earned more money, but living conditions weren't any better. Everyone was friendly, and in the summer we swam, fished, picnicked together, and always sang around the campfire at night. We attended dances in nearby communities, and the entire family would go together. No babysitting was affordable or even considered. Because we had a piano, neighbors and friends would gather in our tent to sing. I remember the sheet music on the piano, not that I played at that point, I was only 6 years old, but I remember the sheet music, and some of you maybe do too, for Red Sails in the Sunset, Isle of Capri, Mammy's Little Cold Black Rose, Du Bis Kleines Puppchen, and others. I had friends to play with, a tire swing, you can see the tire swing on the picture, and plenty of sand and dirt in which to play hopscotch, marbles, jacks, and circle games. The city park nearby had swings and vacant vendor stands where we collected used soda pop caps and played store. It was a rare occasion when we did have any pop to drink. My father was a tradesman, doing both electrical work and plumbing, but struggling to find any work during the Depression. During a sewer cave-in where he was working in the fall of '35, he broke his leg and was forced to stay at home from work for several months with no compensation. I was in second grade at the time, and I remember my school lunch was usually homemade bread spread with mayonnaise and apple. We bought 2 bushels each fall, and a cookie or 2. My mother was ingenious and made our clothes from hand-me-downs. I had made overcoats and snow pants for a good many years. My friends and I really did walk 2 miles to school and wore layers and layers of clothes. My sister Lorena was in college at the time. Now, get this, she was going to college, we were living in a tent, okay? But she stayed with my grandpa and aunt in Winona, and, or she couldn't have gone, of course. And I think the tuition was probably $20 a semester. She only went 2 years, and then she went out teaching, okay? So I can't imagine that they even managed to pay the tuition for her college. And I might say that it did well because she taught for 40 years after that. I knew there wouldn't be much for Christmas that year, but Dad and I managed to cut a juniper tree from the bluff behind us. And we decorated that ugly tree with candles and our few cherished ornaments. My mother made me 2 dresses from cast-offs, which I will never forget. One was black crepe. Bear in mind it was 5 or 6, black crepe. Okay. For which she had bought a red and white polka dot collar and cuffs at the dime store to liven it up. The other one was navy blue crepe, and she got a new buckle and a collar for that one. My Aunt Grace gave me a doll, and I'm sure that we received the most welcome package of walnuts from my grandmother in California. That was the slimmest Christmas of my life, and also the year I lost my faith in Santa. I tried hard to convince myself that the Folgers Everyman sleigh tracks were really Santa's, but I knew better. In the spring and summer, Mother, Lorena, and I hunted asparagus, picked wild blackberries. I mean, we were kind of like the hunters and gatherers, I think. Gooseberries and occasionally blueberries, most of which she canned. My dad and sister did lots of fishing, and we had all kinds of fish and even turtle, which was really quite good, especially the soup. All right, everything we had, then our meals were like pancakes, biscuits, cobblers, and cornbread, and all made in a double frying pan on top of the stove. Our meat was cheap cuts, such as pork liver, neck bones, or soup meat. Chicken or hamburger was used in casseroles to make it